Everyone likes playing games in their free time, may it be video games or not. Like our main character Lee Han, who likes to play video games a lot. He was almost always admitted at hospital during his teens, having nothing to do. He used to play games most of the time. He had played almost every genre of games, leading him to get bored of it one day. Every game he touched after that seemed repetitive and had a boring story for him. Scrolling through his computer, he takes interest in a game, Dungeon and Stone, an indie RPG game with 2D pixelated graphics. He doubts about playing the game, since it doesn't match his taste, but gives it a go, since it was free. The game had a character class system. A player could have choose from classes like a human, a dwarf, a fairy, a barbarian, and finally, a furry. Okay, this seems like a game I would like. As Lee plays through the game, he gets more and more invested, and plays the game till night. He finds the game fun and finds out, if a character dies in game, he has to start all over. Our boy starts to grind the game day and night, but it always resulted in his defeat, and had to start all over. Frustrated, he looks for tutorials, but finds nothing on the internet. But Lee doesn't give up. He spends more time. He plays while working, even when traveling here and there. He had always played the game whenever he could have, failing again and again. 9 years had passed. He was excited, since he had finally reached the boss room. Lee, proud of himself, and celebrating, remembers what he had sacrificed in his life to reach at this point. He clicks enter, to go in the boss room. A message pops up, where it says he may never come back. Ignoring the message, Lee clicks through with a smirk, and waits through for the game to load. Excited, he thinks about the boss, thinking if he beats the boss first try. But the screen shows the message, tutorial complete. Seeing that, Lee is totally shocked, angered, that he had dedicated so much time for the game. Just then, the screen shines brightly, and Lee loses consciousness. After he wakes up, he is shocked seeing himself in a different area. Lee examines the situation, seeing torches and muscular barbarians everywhere, whilst an old man is yelling at them, telling them to pick a weapon for themselves. Lee, who is confused and questioning himself, checks out his body if everything is okay. Shocked, he finds his body has totally changed. Just then, names of the warriors were being called, for them to step forward and pick a weapon of their choice. As that continues, Lee recalls he had seen the current events somewhere, and becomes certain that he is in the game that he was playing, which had the exact start as a barbarian. As he concludes these to himself, another guy, next to him is nervous and shocked, and utters the same thought as him. Just as Lee takes a proper notice of the person, the old man yelling suddenly appears in front of them. Questioning who spoke up just now, Lee yells with a no, when the old man questions him, while the other guy says sorry, but gets his head immediately severed off by the old man. Lee, now scared and nervous, tries to make himself calm down, while the old man says that the person was possessed by an evil spirit. From the events, Lee concludes that no matter what, his true identity shouldn't be known by others, or else it's an end for him, and has to somehow survive through, to find a way to get back. But another problem arose. He doesn't know his current body's name, while everyone is being called out. Since he doesn't know his name, it could arise suspicions and could lead to the same fate as the other guy. He plans if no one steps up, after the name is called for 2 seconds, he will move forward and take the risk. Just then the old man yells out the name, Bjorn, Yandel's son. No one steps up, so he takes the risk and moves forward. Luckily, he was correct, and the name called was indeed his. Lee now has to choose a weapon of his choice, and he goes with a shield. When playing the game before, as Barbarian, Lee had chosen every type of weapon, and got defeated again and again, until he thought of using a shield, which led a huge success for him. The gate towards the labyrinth starts to open, everyone yells, and starts their way through to the labyrinth. But after some time, the barbarian who was leading them, says they have gone to the wrong place. Everyone boos at the barbarian who was leading, chanting he shouldn't be deserved to lead them, while another female warrior steps up to lead the way, named Aner. But she too lost her way to labyrinth. Everyone now shouting and booing her. Lee, or now Bjorn, approaches her, and tells her a tip, for getting to the labyrinth. Bjorn points at the nearby adventurers, saying, They just have to follow them to reach the labyrinth. Einar, now confident, goes to others telling them she now really knows the way to the labyrinth. As they reach the labyrinth, many adventurers are waiting to get in, while Bjorn is nervous thinking if he should enter or not, since he was just a normal person without any knowledge to fight. He remembers the tax system, where every person of the age 20 and above should pay their tax. Unable to do so, will lead to their execution. There were only two ways to earn money, one was entering the labyrinth and defeating the monsters. And the other was, they could work at places like bars and such. But since he was a barbarian, there was no chance he could have done a normal work. And had to enter the labyrinth or shall be executed. The labyrinth opened only once a month, meaning there was no chance for him to survive a town for a month without any money. Just as Bjorn questions himself, Einar taps his shoulder, telling him everyone else has entered and they should too. The portal had 5 minutes to be closed and was getting smaller. Bjorn tells her to enter first and he shall follow her. Einar thanks him, and questions, how can she become as wise and clever as him? While Bjorn replies, she should think before she acts. Einar thanks him again, and says she would repay him back, if she returns. Bjorn asks Einar if she is scared of dying. Einar answers, isn't that normal, with a straight face. She also adds, she too is afraid of dying, but they are born as a warrior, so they would die anyway if they don't fight. Seeing the courage displayed by Einar, Bjorn builds up his courage and rushes towards the portal. He enters just in the last moment, while being warned by the gatekeepers. Inside, he is in a pitch-black area, and couldn't see anything. He recalls the game design for the first floor, and remembers there was no need for light, since the cave already had glowing crystals. He concludes he must have been spawned somewhere random, at the outskirts of the map. He mutters out words, to check, if any skill window pops up, but it doesn't. Bjorn tries to navigate through the cave carefully. Just then, his feet steps on a trap, set by a goblin. In deep pain, Bjorn tries to shut himself, and remembers the goblins usually lurk near the traps for their prey. The goblins are very cunning creatures, who stay hidden in the dark, and wait for their prey to step on a trap, and will finally attack when the prey has lost all its strength. Bjorn cautiously tries to open the trap, trying not to make any sound. The trap even had paralyzing poison, which would cause even more problems for him. While he becomes successful to set himself free, his right foot starts to go numb. He yells and asks the goblin to come out and face him. There was no response to his yelling, and Bjorn starts to navigate through the cave with his current condition. While it's revealed, the goblin is following from behind. Bjorn hears the footsteps, but still couldn't see the goblin. The cunning goblin moved the same way Bjorn did. Trying to run away, Bjorn falls and lays down in the ground, for the goblin to come towards him. The goblin even throws a rock at him, to check if he is gone. Bjorn is pissed at the goblin's smartness. He waits till the goblin comes near him, and attacks but misses. Just then, his body moves on its own, and attacks the goblin, and finally defeats it. He earns 1 XP in a grade 9 magic crystal, which was equivalent to a piece of bread. Bjorn, who is now bleeding, and dragging himself. He gets into a very bad condition, huffing around. He tries to not break his will, and continues moving. Soon, he sees light at the end of the tunnel. After getting out, he sees some adventurers, who also take notice of him. The adventurers inspect Bjorn, thinking, how did a novice as him could have reached here before them? Bjorn, trying to ask for help, isn't able to speak because of the poison. The group leader asks his priestess if she could heal Bjorn. But she refuses. The leader asks another person of his group to give a potion to Bjorn. The leader pours the potion at Bjorn's wounds. Bjorn feels extreme pain and screams when the potion is applied. But his wounds get totally healed, being able to move normally again. The leader of the group asks Bjorn, how did he manage to reach such a place so quickly? Bjorn replies, he was sent here as soon as he entered the portal. The leader concludes that a dimensional instability might have caused this to happen, which could happen every 100 years. Bjorn sees a mage and a priestess in the group, which makes him think the party is aiming to go pretty far into the labyrinth. They say their goodbyes to Bjorn, and move forward. After the interaction, Bjorn had felt disgusted for being pitied. The group followed Bjorn's blood trails, while talking about how lucky Bjorn was to find them. The trail was everlasting, but they found a shortcut and reached the entrance to the second floor. The leader lights up the portal and gets ready to go in. Just then, one of the group members sees a sandal and a trap. The mage lights up the area to check, and finds more trails of the wounded barbarian. Everyone is astonished about how far the barbarian had to crawl to reach them. The group leader projects they might have walked for about 10 miles to reach their destination. While everyone is shocked at what they had found out, they also remembered Bjorn, giving them his magic crystal for their help. The group praises Bjorn's willpower, and points out he isn't like others and won't die easily, like other novices. Bjorn is now fully recovered, and takes his revenge by defeating more goblins. Annoyed at his current situation, he is also tired and most importantly, hungry. He remembers he had a food pouch with him, but it had only one bread. Bjorn eats his bread and gets thirsty. He thinks ways on how to get water, by remembering the game's level design. He remembers he only had to carry food and not any water. But he nags about it, since he is alive and needs water. Bjorn walks through the cave and encounters an adventurer, but they don't have any conversation and leave. Bjorn sits down and counts his magic crystals he earned. He had collected 44 of them, but another problem arose. He was sleepy and had to find someone, and form a party with them for the night. Most reject the offer, since he was an intimidating barbarian. Just then, an adventurer approaches him, named Hans, asking if he needs him as a night companion. They shake hands, but it gets weird. Hans recommends that he sleeps first, and hands Bjorn a watch to keep track of time, and to wake him up when it's Bjorn's turn to sleep. After some time, Bjorn wakes Hans up, and gets ready to sleep. Bjorn is suspicious of Hans and couldn't trust him too easily. He at first acts to sleep, while snoring, and not letting his guard down, which results in him not getting any sleep, while Hans goes to sleep again. Bjorn looks at Hans and questions, why didn't he attack him, or do anything to him? Bjorn snoozes for a while Hans wakes him up, and says it's his turn to sleep again. Bjorn still suspects Hans, and tries to stay awake, acting to sleep. He hears rustling and wakes up immediately, waking up to a smiling Hans, who is lifting his weapon to attack him. Without wasting any time, Bjorn dodges. Angered Bjorn attacks him. While getting beaten down, Hans begs Bjorn to stop, and let him explain something. But Bjorn, without listening, attacks him again. Hans begs Bjorn to spare him, and questions why he attacked him. Hans replied, he wanted Bjorn's loots and sell them for his profits. But Bjorn kicks him, asking what else he is hiding. Hans yells, he wanted his heart. He explains to shocked Bjorn that a barbarian's heart is in high demand at the black market, because it's being used to develop a new magic spell. Hans asks Bjorn to let him go, since he has told him everything. Without any second thought, Bjorn unalives Hans. He takes his loots, and gets his stats boosted. Bjorn with his new weapon, starts to clear out more goblins. As he clears more of them, a lot more appear out of nowhere, even in pairs. But he still is easily able to clear them. Unable to get any proper sleep, Bjorn gets tired, and he tries to rest. But every time he does, he is met up by more goblins. Angered, he attacks them. Bjorn tries to get some sleep, while he dozes off for a moment. He is stabbed by a goblin at his chest. Angered Bjorn unalives them in one shot, while the leftover goblins run away. Luckily, he was stabbed in a non-fatal area. He applies potion in his wound, which heals away immediately, and continues his expedition, but first he needs to find a companion. Especially, another barbarian, whom he can trust. After Hans, many people like him ask Bjorn to be his knight companion. But Bjorn refuses, telling them he wants to find another barbarian like him. One of them tells Bjorn it would be difficult to find one, since barbarians advance to the second floor pretty quickly, and there would be less than 100 barbarians at the current floor. Bjorn continues his expedition, hoping he could find another barbarian like him. Just then, he sees an elf archer sitting alone. Who could be a nice companion for him?